Welcome back to another video, everybody. We have a lot to discuss as we get into what is most likely going to be another very crazy trading week this next week. We're going to be covering some of the most recent updates with this escalation between Israel and Iran here and how this is going to affect the overall big picture here from a macroeconomic perspective, and then tying it back into some of your guys' favorite names, covering some of the most recent pieces of news and the short-term chart of Palantir, Tesla, Sofi, and Neo, so that you guys can get a better understanding here of what to expect next, not only out of the broad market, but out of some of the individual names that you own. So before we get into all of that information, guys, if you guys do enjoy the information and analysis that I provide for you guys in these videos here, make sure you go down and hit that like button. Costs you nothing to do it, but it helps me out a whole lot in spreading this information out to as many people who actually want to learn. And again, make sure you're subscribed and turn on notifications so you're notified every time these videos do end up getting posted live. And as always, massive shout out to all of the members of the Less Trades More Profits private trading and investing community. You guys went on an absolute tear this week. It is absolutely awesome seeing all of your guys' gains, the multi-thousand percenters. Congratulations on Oracle, everybody. DG, Zscaler, Novo Nordisk. The guys, I mean, what do you guys expect at this point? It is the absolutely best place to come and learn how to operate in the market here. If you guys do want to come in there and join us and get access to all of the educational curriculum videos, the private live streams every single day, the full watch list of stocks and cryptos that are about to explode before they do, the pre-market plans, the macro research reports, single stock research reports, weekly market research reports. Make sure you guys check out that link down below. Again, I'm running the best sale I will ever offer here. Use code June to get 50% off your first 2 months to the group. It's literally only $1 a day. Make sure you guys do that before we go waitlist only at the end of the month if you guys are interested. So let's get into some of this information over here. First, we have Netanyahu saying Israel will strike every site and every target of the Ayatollah's regime. We also have Iran canceling the Sunday nuclear talks with the U.S. Iran's foreign minister Abbas here, I mean, again, guys, sorry, I'm probably going to skip over some of these names. I don't want to completely mess them up here. Told EU foreign policy chief that Tehran will not take part in nuclear talks with the U.S. scheduled for Sunday in Oman. According to a person briefed on their Saturday call, Agchi blamed the U.S. for the current tensions, but did not rule out future talks if Israeli attacks cease. Now, guys, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I am sort of some sort of geopolitical expert and going to tell you what's going to happen next with all of these new developing situations here. But what we can do, and what is the smart course of action for any sort of market participant, is to look at what the potential effects of this new conflict are going to be and how we can manage those effects moving forward here. Now, in addition to this as well, we have Iran Fars news agency cites senior military officials as saying conflict will spread in coming days to U.S. bases in the region. So it does look like this conflict is escalating here, and the main thing that we have to consider is what is this going to do to oil prices. This is something that we've talked a little bit about in a couple of the videos this week, and the main thing that I really want to get across to you guys here is that if oil prices are going to continue to move up, that is going to drive an increase to inflation and also a decrease to economic growth. And you can hear it directly from Jerome Powell here. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said in his semi-annual testimony before the U.S. Senate Banking Committee in March 2022 that every $10 per barrel increase in the price of crude oil raises inflation by 0.2% and sets back economic growth by 0.1%. So as investors and market participants here, if we continue to see this conflict escalate and also the price of oil continuously move up, what we would then expect to see economic growth slow and inflation start to move back to the upside there. Now, with what we've recently seen out of the labor market here, that could push a lot of different pockets of the global economy into a period of stagflation, which is definitely bearish for equities. Now, I don't want to sound all doom and gloom here either. Again, there is kind of a running meme or a running joke in kind of geopolitics and kind of those spaces in social media and also in the finance space that nothing ever happens. We are seeing these situations continuously develop here, but it is possible that a lot of these strikes end up slowing down towards the end of next week here, and things start to kind of move back to some sort of period of relative normalcy here. Now, again, just taking a look at CPI year over year, over the last 5 years here, we are still seeing this nice downtrend in consumer prices here. So having a little bit of a move back up here in CPI, even though it was lower than what the market expected it to be, that is still a positive sign here. And I wouldn't say that it is the worst thing in the world to see a little bit of a move up in CPI here, as long as it is not significant or drastic and something that will spook the market. So the market in general this week is going to be looking very closely at what the new developments are going to be with this escalation in the Middle East. But we also have some very significant macroeconomic events coming up this week as well here, with the main event coming on Wednesday, June 18th with the FOMC meeting. Now, when you think about what the tone of the Federal Reserve has been so far this year, they have been kind of cautious and a little bit hawkish here, to be honest, when it comes to moving on interest rates. Now, if they are already worried about inflation moving back to the upside as a result of this new trade policy, well, the door is now open for them to be even more cautious, with oil moving significantly to the upside. So the tone of Jerome Powell this week is going to be very, very important to pay attention to, and can absolutely move markets around if he comes out too much on the hawkish side here. Now, let's get into a couple of these individual names here. The first one that I want to start off with is Palantir. We did talk a little bit earlier this week about that new price target increase on Palantir around 150 from Loop Capital, which is very solid. And then looking at this chart just from a technical perspective here, we are starting to see a very bullish setup forming at the highs here. Nice period of consolidation. If Palantir can continue to consolidate here, form a nice range and break that 140 level to the upside, we could easily see this name move very quickly into the 150s in a very, very short period of time. Now, again, when you think about that New York Times article, again, we have said this time and time again that it's not going to be anything that's going to drastically affect their revenues or their ability to generate revenues, but it would be nice to see a nice PR campaign coming out from Palantir that isn't Alex Karp kind of doing the typical Alex Karp talk on CNBC or any of these other news outlets, to kind of calm down normal everyday people when it comes to this company. Now, in addition to this, we also have some very interesting news coming out with Palantir and a couple of other different companies as well. The U.S. Army today will direct commission 4 tech executives at the rank of lieutenant colonel, charging them with leading the new Army Innovation Corps inside the reserve component, according to a service spokesman. Detachment 201 is being created to bring in tech innovation executives leaders to help the Army on broader conceptual things like talent management. How do we bring in tech-focused people into the ranks of the military? And then how do we train them? The initial cohort of executives includes Chief Technology Officer from Palantir, Shyam Sankar. So again, when we see these types of developments here, kind of furthering the relationship between Palantir and the United States government, again, they are already growing their government revenues at a very significant pace, their commercial revenues as well, but we could easily see even more government contracts coming the way to Palantir because of all of these deepening relationships here. Now, moving on here, let's actually talk a little bit about Tesla as well. Again, we have seen a lot of volatility recently with this name, and for those of you guys that took advantage of the trade idea that I gave you guys on Tesla selling puts around these lows here to take advantage of that increased implied volatility, congratulations. That was an absolutely awesome trade for you guys. But again, looking at the way that this chart is setting up right now, we easily could have a very bullish short-term setup on Tesla forming if we can start getting a couple of daily candle closes above this blue line, this daily 10 exponential moving average, and begin to consolidate very similar to what we saw up in this area right here and also in this area right here. So this is going to be one that, again, I am going to be watching very closely in the Less Trades More Profits community to see if this chart is going to meet a lot of my criteria here. But thinking about Tesla from a broad perspective here, we also have Tom Lee with some comments on Tesla as well. So let's roll that clip very quickly here as well.
And the name I want to start with is Tesla, because as you recall last week, Tesla had a terrible week because of a feud between President Trump and Elon Musk. And on that Friday of the close, you could see Tesla closed down 14%. Now, our advice to investors was that Tesla had so many advantages, from manufacturing to full self-driving to robotics and AI, etc., that we thought the stock would quickly recover. And in fact, at the start of this week, the feud does seem to have ended between President Trump and Elon Musk. And Tesla stock actually recovered almost all the losses, up 20% for the week.
So Tom Lee still remains very bullish on Tesla here, still calling it a granny shot, and something that he talks about a lot is that when stocks are not able to be held down off of very bad news, well, that could be a very positive development for them coming in the near future. Now, again, with Tesla and a lot of these other names, we do also have to be very cautious of the overall big picture situation and what is going to be unrolling with the market over the next couple of days and weeks here. Again, if we do see the market able to hold these highs, Tesla could easily have a nice short-term bullish setup forming here and end up getting that breakout to the upside. But again, if the market wants to sell off as a result of this escalation in the Middle East, then we could easily see Tesla trade a decent amount lower. Now, let's move on here to Sofi. This is one that we were talking about on that weekly breakout setup there. And I did want to see a weekly close above this area here, this 1478. Right now, with what we're looking at here on the chart with Sofi, is not a very bullish looking chart anymore on this weekly time frame. You could easily look at this most recent weekly candle as kind of a reversal candle here. We could easily see Sofi trade back down to this weekly 10 EMA here at around 1336. And I saw a lot of conversation on social media here talking about the fact that Sofi was trading higher off of this Chime IPO. Now, while some of that excitement and exuberance coming for these IPOs can trickle into other names, what a lot of people were looking for out of this IPO here was to gauge the appetite out of the overall market when it comes to these fintech companies. And as you can see here, we have not seen that crazy reaction to the upside, investors bidding this one up on Chime like we have seen with some of those other IPOs recently, which again could end up hurting Sofi in the short term if that's what overall investors were looking for. But again, in the long term, this is a name that I have a lot of confidence in. They are bringing crypto back. They are at 11 million members and have those goals to get to 50 million members, and are unrolling a lot of other products here for their members, and are honestly witnessing a lot of growth. The market just hasn't given it, again, that love that I feel, and I think a lot of other investors right now feel that it deserves. But I do think that time is going to be coming for Sofi in the future here. And again, that is the name of the game here. I think a lot of people are going to be looking at the market from too short-term of a perspective. Even when they are looking at the market and thinking that they want to be a long-term investor, they let a lot of those short-term and moves and these volatile moves get to them emotionally. Again, guys, when you are putting your money into these types of investments, you always have to know exactly what you're buying and have a very strong thesis as to why you are buying what you're buying. Now, last one up on the list here, guys, before we wrap up this video is NEO. So we are seeing this one break down from this range of support here that it has done a decent job of holding over the last couple of months here. Again, this one not really looking great in the short term here. For NEO, like I always say when we do mention it in these videos, it is all going to come down to how well this company is able to execute going into the end of this year, because again, they have overpromised and underdelivered time and time again. Now, they do have some positive developments that we have seen recently. NEO signs new distributor deal to enter 3 more European markets. Now, while this is good, you also have to think about this EU and European trade deal with the US in general here, especially when autos are such a big factor in those trade talks here. And then in addition, NEO welcomes new executive that could help improve its financial situation here. Again, the new individual who served as head of cross-border M&A at CICC for the past 10 years has joined NEO as vice president of capital markets. Angelov's appointment is expected to open up new financing channels for NEO, which again could be new positive developments, but at the end of the day, they need to sell more cars. So that is going to wrap up this video, everybody. We have a lot going on over this next week here. Remember, I am going to be live every single day with you guys at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. So again, make sure you guys have notifications turned on for the channel so you don't miss those live streams. But until next time, guys, again, if you guys did enjoy the information and analysis I provided for you guys in this video here, make sure you go down and hit that like button. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.